Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Diana Mills. It's so exciting to talk with authors like yourself who have had amazing careers as independent, extremely prolific writer. Not only that, but you're an part of the FBI Citizens Academy, which I'm sure informs what you write about in your books. You've won 2 Christie Awards. You're the 2022 American Christian Fiction Writers Mentor of the Year, and nearly 100 books to your catalog. Is that not true?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. What are you going to do when you hit 100? Are you going to throw a big party?
I think I want to take a cruise. I've never
That's
taken a
fantastic.
cruise, but I think I'd like to do that.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got started as a writer. Were you always a writer? Was this a career switch for you? And what kind of led you to the point of making it your full-time career?
Well, actually, this is a bit funny. I wrote from the time I could hold a pencil. Uh, I laughingly say that I used to get spanked for telling fibs, and now I get paid for it. But I wrote my first book when I was in the second grade with a number 2 pencil on a Big Chief notebook pad. That gives away my age. But you know what? I never had confidence to keep the things I wrote. So, growing up, the teenage years where we're trying to discover ourselves, and I wrote poetry and all kinds of things, but I didn't keep anything. I threw it all away. And back in 96, my husband said to me, "Stop telling me that someday you're going to write a book. Quit your job. Give you 1 year to get something published. And you know what? You don't have to get paid for it. Because if you get something published, you don't ever have to go back to your other job." So I said, "Okay, I will. I will do that." And I did. I looked at it just like I was in another job, because it was another job. And I got myself organized and disciplined. And here I am today. And obviously, I never went back to my other job. And book number 93 will be released the end of summer. And I have no intentions of stopping at this point. that's that's my story. And it's also a challenge to anyone else out there who is thinking, "I really want to write, but I don't have confidence." Well, this is your challenge. Just do it.
Do you feel like the confidence comes in doing, that that's the best way for authors who are maybe feeling less confident, is to just say, you know what, I have to go through the uncomfortable feelings of not feeling confident and push through that to get to the other side and doing, and then the confidence comes after?
Yes. Now, I will say that there's always a twinge of fear when any of us go to start something new.
Right.
But that fear diminishes as we do it. I love an adventure, and I have to look at every new novel, every new idea as another adventure, and that takes away the fear. The quote, "Do what you fear. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself." That's so true. It is so true.
Yeah, I've heard a common piece of advice for people, like if you're nervous about flying planes, to recast it in your mind as, I'm excited to write a plane, because that
Hmm.
same fluttery feeling can feel, that can feel very similar in our bodies. And so I love your idea of transforming fear into a sense of adventure. I think that's a great parallel for that kind of thinking. So tell me a little bit about how you manage the business side and the artistic side. You referenced learning how to apply that kind of discipline and treating it like a job when you got started. So how do you sort of balance the, inspiration that comes with being disciplined across time to be successful?
Well, I don't really want to sound like a repeating record, but I have to look. I guess record shows you how old I am, but I have to look at everything as a part of the adventure. When we are training for a race, We've got to stretch ourselves. We've got to sweat till we drop. We've got to shed a few tears and then we're victorious. And that's the way I look at not only the creative side of writing, but when I'm ready for marketing and promotion, I'm going to put that creative hat back on again and weave it with this is my purpose. These are my readers. How can I reach them? How can I take the theme of my story and enhance their lives, make it fun? And just the whole process. What's something new and different I can try? I am not afraid to try something new. Neither am I afraid to say, you know what, that didn't work. So let's go on to something else.
Yeah.
It's our attitude.
Yeah. Well, one of the creative things that you do with part of your book promotion is hosting a book club and providing club materials with each of your books. So tell me about how you came up with that idea and what that looks like.
I had been in a book club and I just had all this compassion for the hostess who was always scrounging for, oh, wait, what can I do with my club members? How can I make this more fun instead of just sitting around in a circle drinking coffee and talking about the book? So I looked at again, it's an adventure, and I developed menus that uh, that the hostess could use that had something to do with my book. Maybe it was mentioned in my book, or I took a little creative license and said, "Oh, this is something that this hero or this heroine really enjoyed." So I gave them menu ideas, word games, all kinds of word games, and those are free online. You just have to look for them. I developed discussion questions. I developed fun questions. I did just everything that I could possibly think of to make it just more fun. Icebreakers that had things to do with my story. If I had an FBI agent, okay, so you want to be an FBI agent? Are you qualified? Take this test, or ATF, or Secret Service, or CIA, or any of those things, just to make it incredibly fun. Or if this book was made into a movie, who would you like to see as the hero and heroine or the bad guy? And let the book club members be a part of the whole big adventure. It's just another extension.
Yeah, I think that's such a great insight because, I'm not a writer, I'm a big time reader. And so I always feel like, um, and maybe other authors might be offended by this, but there's this sort of co creation that happens with me as a reader encountering somebody's work. I engage my imagination, I imagine what these characters are like. And so something like, oh, how would you cast all of these roles in a movie is another way for readers to kind of engage in that co creation that readers bring their imagination to the table, writers bring their imagination to the table, and we have this sort of, shared world that we engage in together.
Oh, that shared world is so amazing. One thing I will say, readers 75, 100 years ago, and beyond that, they would pick up a book and they would say, oh, I'm going to read and see what Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn or Little Miss Becky, see what they're doing. But today's reader, no, 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 no. They pick up Tom Sawyer and they are going to be Tom or Huck
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
Becky. So this just adds more flavor to the whole experience.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking a lot about sort of trying different things with your marketing approach and trying different things with promotion, unafraid to try something new, unafraid to say, that one didn't work so well. So, do you take the same kind of iterative approach that you do with your marketing as you do with your writing and editing? What does that adventure look like as you try and, branch out to something new or whatever? What does that look like for you?
To develop that marketing and promotion, I have to think through the eyes of the reader who has just journeyed or anticipating journeying through this story. What kind of posts, what kind of memes, what kind of real short clips, because our attention span is short, can I use that will get their attention and make them excited? If it's a meme, then I want to make sure that uh, if I can, how do I put this? If I can put my own feet on the same ground as my hero and my heroine, if I can use all of my sensory perception in being there, no matter where that is, take pictures, remember exactly how I felt, massage that into not only my hero and my heroine, but translate that for the reader, then to me, I've put my game up a notch because it's all about the reader. It's
Yeah.
all about the reader. And so I I just want to enhance that experience, make it as authentic as possible, whether they're reading a quote from someone said, or if they're in a setting that the character has experienced, all that is important.
Yeah, I think that Braille is just such a great exploration of the way that when you have readers who are fans of their work, they love to be in your world beyond the pages of your book. And when you can deliver that to them on whatever social media platform or whatever your favorite platform is, you're going to garner a lot of loyalty from your fans because they so appreciate having that universe kind of extended and that experience extended across different platforms. And, I know I feel that way about the books that I love is like, oh, I wish I could be in Middle Earth for far beyond, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I long to go back to that imaginative world. And I know that many, many others are, and I know that many other readers feel the same way. So you write primarily in the romantic suspense genre. How did you discover that that was going to be home base for you, and what do you like to accomplish within that genre?
In the beginning, when I started writing, I did historical. I almost said hysterical because sometimes I say that. And I did contemporary romance. And what I realized is what I loved was the suspense factor in a contemporary story. We all
Yeah.
live in a unpredictable and dangerous world, and I love doing the research behind the brave men and women, the courageous people who are committed to making sure we're safe. And then how sweet to meet someone unexpectedly and that little spark of love jump into uh, the whole story, sometimes making a relationship very, very hard because there are steps that those investigators and researchers and agents that they have to take that not only put themselves in danger, but maybe they put someone else. So all of that just played into, wow, I may have found the love of my life, but I've got to wait till this case is over before I can pursue it. So it's all just kind of fun, and I want to ensure that the romance part of it is as thrilling and exciting and suspenseful as the crime that they are investigating.
Yeah, I can definitely see the threads of the open-endedness, the uncertainty of life, and the unexpectedness of romance really being two sides of the same coin of like, there's danger, but also potential really positive outcome here in this uncertain world that you've created. And I
Yes.
think too, there's a lot of comfort in exploring the uncertainty of the world that we experience every day, but through a fictional lens, because of course we get the resolution at the end in fiction, which we don't always get in life, but it allows us to explore danger and positive potentiality in these imaginative worlds. It's a little bit like being in a bubble, and I think that's one of the most powerful things about literature is it helps us to process so much of what's difficult about real life in these imaginative worlds.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, it is more difficult to write a contemporary because of the technology is changing all the time. That there are times that I might stretch something and I'll say to my husband, who is very technological, and he'll say, "Well, you know what? That particular procedure isn't available now, but it probably will be by the time your book is out." So I love that. I love that challenge of researching what is possible and how I can apply it to my story.
So you also have a book that is all about how writers can use social media. And we've talked a little bit about, kind of some general ideas of extending your worlds onto these platforms to give, your readers a multimedia experience and additional ways to engage with your work and with you. What is your approach, kind of more practically nuts and bolts, to what you do with social media?
I believe in scheduling. I believe in ensuring weekly that I have a specific time allotment to form my social media posts according to the platform, because every platform has its own personality and every platform has a specific group of followers who enjoy that platform. Whether it is X, Twitter, with something just short and a link to look at, or whether it's Facebook and it's a little more relational, to Instagram where it's more visual, to Goodreads, BookBub, and all the others out there. So I have to think, okay, this is going to go on Facebook. I know who my followers are. So let me design something that I'm thinking about that would influence them. What is this national day of? What's something funny that I can relate to myself? What's something serious? What's a question I can pose to them? If you could go anywhere in the world on a vacation and money wasn't an obstacle, where would you go? And then make sure that I respond to those people. And yes, let's do it. We can have a great time on the moon or wherever. Uh, but all of it has to be looked at on the basis of the platform, that platform's personality, my followers, what they are interested in, and how I can best meet their needs. That's how I do it. And I do believe that if Diann spends more than 30 minutes a day on social media, she's spent too long. And that is something that I always want my writers to know. First and most important, we are writers. And so that's where our time needs to be so our followers can appreciate what we are doing. So
Yeah, you
that,
don't get to writing 100 books by spending all of your time on social media.
right. Even though there are lots of things that are fun out there, that's sort of a treat after you get your word count done. But those are the things. So we have to look at scheduling, and there are scheduling tools. We have to look at Facebook that please don't use a scheduler because that needs to be fresh and now. But other things can be scheduled, and that helps your time. So it's just being organized. And if a writer is having problems being organized and disciplined and scheduled, they may need to call in someone and say, "Hey, I need some help here."
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's nothing wrong with that. There's not
Yeah,
a thing wrong with that. You're just admitting, "Hey, this is more of a challenge than I'm prepared to deal with."
100%. So, how would you describe the Diana Mills brand?
An adventure, always an adventure. I say an adventure because if I am not thoroughly dressed in an adventure myself with my attitude, with where my mind is, then I certainly can't expect you to have an adventure either. So even if it's something I don't enjoy as much as something else, I still have to look at it that this deserves 100% of my attention. And whatever I'm doing has got to be has got to be stepped into as this is for you. This is all about you. And I may not enjoy what I'm doing at this very moment, but you don't need to know that. And that really, really helps. Study those platforms. Find out where your readers are, and then join in on the conversation, whatever the conversation is. It's not about me.
That's so well said. So, with that idea of having the adventure and prioritizing, the fans, the readers, the audience, how do you decide like what's in and what's out as you're kind of trying new things with social media?
I've got to go in and do the analytics. What's trending? Why is it trending? Is what's trending applicable to me and my brand, or is it way off there in left field and I need to know about it, but I don't need to be confusing my followers by posting and commenting on things that are not relational to who we are. I really believe that it is critical for every writer to know what's going on in the world. I can't help you if I don't know what your concerns are. So, whether it be global, country, state, local, whatever it is, we need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then we know the mindset of our followers and readers.
Right. So, as a writing mentor, what is the biggest way that working with other writers has informed your own writing?
It is always challenging me because if they ask me a question, I need to be able to find the answer if I don't know. I believe in educating the next generation of writers. So, whatever their concerns are, whatever their needs are, I want to have an answer. And that makes me more informed. Uh, we've always heard that the teacher learns more than what the students do because they have to be prepared over and above what the lesson is about. So that's the way I feel about writing, the genres, the fiction, the nonfiction. There are some aspects of writing and some of social media that, yes, they are challenging. So I need to turn those into strengths. That way I can better help my my students, the mentees, and I'm learning all the time too.
What do you think is the most frequent piece of advice that you give to your mentees?
Read, read, read. Number one, stay informed about the world. Number two, number three, make sure that you are educating yourself every day with increasing your knowledge about the craft, marketing, promotion, the publishing world, and then write, and then repeat.
Yeah. So unpack that a little bit. Why do you think that it's so important for authors to, because all three of those are really about self education, whether it's reading or understanding the craft better or educating yourself about promotion. So, why do you think that reading is so important for writers to be engaging with in such a consistent way?
The quote, I guess I'm doing a lot of quotes today, is to make sure that your enemy is your friend, that kind of thing. Uh, so if I know what the bestsellers content is in their books, then I can look at what they're doing and say, oh, that is a technique that I could massage and use in something of my own.
Mm.
If I see that a particular writer is doing very, very well with very short video clips, then I know that's something I can emulate. So, whatever the competition is doing, and they are doing it well, I need to know what that is to see if it works for me or if it's something I can pass on to someone else.
Fantastic. So I find this always interesting for any creative, to be honest. What does your writing routine look like on a daily basis?
I'm sort of OCD. I'll admit that. Uh, I am up very early in the morning, 5-ish. I think that's early. Uh, as a Christian, I want to start the day with God. I want to make sure that I have those instructions and that down before I begin. And I have a process. So I'm out of bed. I'm into workout clothes. I grab my worship material and I go into my workout room and I close the door. So between the weights and the treadmill and the elliptical and the stationary bicycle, I am taking care of me spiritually, physically, and mentally before I grab my pot of coffee. After breakfast, I want my writing goals, the word count that I need to get done for the day. I want that done as soon as possible. Uh, after lunch, then I'm going to dive into uh, reading the blog post, reading the how-to books, rereading, reading in my genre, reading the bestsellers, tending to the mentoring, uh, editing if I'm doing an editing project for someone else. I break for, I like to cook dinner. I like to cook, it's creative. Now, some of them, the dishes may not be that grand, but at least I try. And after dinner, my husband likes to engage in some TV, and my attention span is really bad when it comes to TV. And so I just work right there with him. That's when I look to see what emails that have come in that I need to respond to, um, Facebook or something that I need to respond to. And maybe I might do just a little bit more on my word count for the next day. I do believe every project needs to be done way in advance of deadlines. Blog posts 2 months ahead of time. Books done and finished and turned in 2 months ahead of time because our lives are filled with interruption. So make room for those interruptions, and that way you are never left stressed.
Give yourself room for capacity. Plan
Yes,
for, you
yes.
know, the unexpected. It could be romance, it could be danger, you don't know.
You just don't know till you get there.
Can you share a little bit about your experience of working traditional publishing versus independent publishing? What are the pros and cons? What does that look like?
Okay. Independent writers, independent publishing means the writer is in charge of everything, everything. That means cover, editing, content, marketing, sales, absolutely everything is on the writer's shoulders. Now, there is the argument that they will make more money. So that's something to consider too. And if that independent publishing venue is for you, make sure you have a strong platform. Well, I'm a cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys or whatever. Or I have this, um, everybody knows me as a singer, a speaker, an actor, actress. if you have a platform like that, indie publishing will work well because people know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of wonderful organizations that will help uh, independent writers get their work out there and get them known. And it takes a little bit of work, but it can be done and it can be done successfully. Traditional publishing, and I love that because it's team.
Mm.
When my house is looking at a cover, they have sales and marketing, they have editorial, and then they have somebody coming in that has this psychological thing going on in their brain. So they know what colors and font and things of that nature. So it's a process and it's a group process, and I like that. The same way with the editing. It's not just one person doing the editing, there's lots looking at it. The traditional publisher can get me into foreign languages, audio, large print, English speaking countries around the world, or in other languages too, as I just said. Um, you have your unsung heroes of your marketing and sales team who are out there visiting with all the different retail sites. You have a publicist. You have venues that only traditional publishing houses can get together. But I will say this, today's writer, whether they are indie or traditional, must be aware that much of the marketing and promotion has to be done by the writer. And you
Mm.
know what? I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I know that my traditional publishing house has a passion for my story, nobody has passion like I do.
Mm.
So I have this extensive spreadsheet that I have, and my ideas for marketing and promotion, and I am, predominantly I'm a traditional publisher, begins with the idea. And I work with my marketing and promotion spreadsheet all the way through till after the book is released. And that's the same thing that an indie writer has to do also. I think that the writer needs to look at the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of both, and decide what works for them. And uh, is it, what am I best suited for? What's my vision? What is the purpose and the motivation behind writing this book? All of those have to play into that factor and then get those tools that are needed. Street teams, both the indie and the traditionally published writer needs a street team because they have relationships and groups that only they can get into. And so we need to look at that too. There's a whole lot going on there instead of just writing a book.
When you're talking with other writers, whether it's in the mentorship relationship or just, water cooler talk, what is the number one question that you think you get asked?
Well, number one's always how do I get published?
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a simple question to answer. Number one would be the same thing that I've said before. You've got to write a good book. And in order to
Mm.
write a good book, then you've got to read lots of other books and find out why those books are published and what are the trends and who do I envision my book for? Uh, what are other people reading? Look at the bestseller list, look at the stats, look at the analysis of what people are reading, and start that platform.
Mm.
You've got to have a platform. It doesn't do any good to write a decent book if you don't have followers. Because where is the publishing house, or where are you as an indie writer? Where are you going to take it
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have a social media platform?
Yeah, 100%. In your opinion, is it more challenging to be a full time, full career author today than it was when you started or, in previous eras of writing?
I'm going to say I think it's harder now.
Mm,
There are more people writing. Communication is just seconds away.
mm,
The world is constantly changing. Love your book one day, hate it the next.
mm.
I think that it takes an awareness that we've never experienced before because of communication. And whereas Dickens did absolutely phenomenal in London and sold all these tons and tons of books, there are people now saying, well, I can be as good as that. I can be as good as that. I'm going to write my book. I'm just going to put it out there. And it is harder because of communication and because word of mouth, while that is the best form of marketing and promotion, what we are being fed constantly through the media and social media too is what is causing sales to rise or maybe not so much.
Exposure is a double edged sword.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the recent releases that you have coming out.
Okay. The most recent release is a title that I had several years ago. It is a historical romantic suspense set in 1935 in Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. And in that setting, and for those of you who do not know what Ghost Ranch is, it is where City Slickers was filmed, and it's beautiful and desolate. And I visited there and was so charmed by the beauty that I had to put a book there. So it is a historical, it is a re-release that I did myself. And then my romantic suspense latest is Facing the Enemy. And my publisher is Tyndale. And that particular story is about a woman, an FBI agent who works in the division that's crimes against children, which is a
Mm,
very, very tough division for agents to be a part of. It's heartbreaking. It makes you angry because of the things that are done to children. That's where she works. And she is catching up with her brother, and she's been estranged from that brother. And it's a wonderful reunion. And as they are walking across the street, he is hit and killed, a pedestrian hit and run. And that sets the stage for the story because she realizes that she was the target and she
mm,
is going to find out who and why someone wants her dead. And
mm,
the hero, of course, is encouraging and strong and firm. And it is just a story about determination, grief. I will say that this book is probably more true than what I would normally use in a book, but we had a son who was tragically killed in a hit and run, and I used my own emotions and anger and fury and bitterness and ultimate forgiveness uh, from my own journal and massaged it into my heroine's personality. So it there's a lot of truth in that story, but it was also a healing book for me too. So I
mm.
recommend it for anyone who loves romantic suspense, but also if you're grieving about something, you might be able to be encouraged by reading how Risa faced the same tragedy.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that healing process looked like through writing this story?
Through writing the story, there were a lot of tears, especially when I was working through Risa facing the anger, the
Mm,
bitterness. How could you hit someone and just keep right on going? What were you
mm,
thinking? Uh,
mm,
Also, the bitterness, the why God,
mm,
why did
mm,
this happen? Uh, and the things that she went through were were so mirrored with mine that it was a difficult project to write. At the end of the book, I thought, okay, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of healing. I'm glad I did this. I don't ever want to
mm,
do this again, but I'm glad that I wrote this book.
mhm,
Then a year later, I'm going through the book launch and it all comes back again, except this
mm,
time it's worse.
mm,
And if you are a writer and you are contemplating writing something uh, that involves grief and it's real, understand that it is a process. And
mm,
that if you want to be true to your emotions and true to your story, you're going to have to walk through it and more than once. So
mm.
uh, that is that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
What
Sure.
did your support system look like as you were working on something that was more tender and more emotionally heavy to work through?
I did not tell my other sons. I have four sons. I still have four sons. Just one lives in heaven. I did not tell them that's what I was doing. Uh, I felt that this was healing, and they were going through enough of their own grief, excuse me, to not bear that burden. My
Mm,
husband, on the other hand, very, very supportive, always has been. I That's who he is. That's his personality. So he was my support system, and some very, very tender, good friends. My best friend, less than a year before, had lost a daughter-in-law in a tragic accident, and we had just finished walking her through that, till she had to walk me through it.
mm,
And uh, there is no one better to cry with than someone who has experienced the same thing. Life is hard, but we don't grow as people. We don't grow as individuals. We're not better people to help others unless we walk through some crisis, some tragedies ourselves. We don't want it, but it's necessary. And
mm.
that's part of life.
Yeah. I think that this book might be, to a certain extent, able to do what your friend did to you for others who might be walking through that. Because those stories matter and those stories touch us deeply. So thank you so much for putting so much of your heart into that story. I know it'll mean a lot to a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so. I pray so.
How many books have you set aside and why?
I don't have any. I have some ideas that I haven't written, but I don't have anything I've abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I'm OCD. If I get an idea, I'm going to follow it all the way through. If I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's not working, I'm going to go back and find out why. What do I need to do differently?
So tell us, where can our listeners and viewers find you? Where are you online? Because she's a lot of places, folks.
You can go to my website, diannmills.com, and that's DIANNMILLS.com. And right there on that first page, you see, oh, there's her Facebook link, there's her X, there is Instagram and LinkedIn and Goodreads and BookBub. And oh my goodness, Facebook, all of them are there. You click and you can go right to my website, and You can find those social media platforms and just join in. I love to hear from readers and writers. There's also a spot there that you can connect with me via email. Please do so. As I said, I
And
love to hear from you.
and where can people like what's the best place for them to go looking for your books? Where are they available if they wanted to go purchase them?
Actually, you go right to my website, and I have every venue that's out there that the reader can click on. Uh, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Christian Book Distributors, Kobo, everything that's out there. Uh, the publisher site is all right there. I like to think that my website is the one-stop shopping center. You can also look at my books. You can read a chapter. You can look at the book trailers. You can look at the book club kits. All of those are right there on my website that should help you as a reader or as a book club hostess, or I'm just curious. It shows the events where I'll be at. If someone's interested in mentoring or editing or how I feel about writing things, that everything is all right there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Diana, for being on our episode today. Thank you so much for sharing about your process, your career, your approach to marketing and promotion. And thank you so much for sharing your tender insights about your own experience and grief and how you transform that into beautiful art. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been an honor and just so fun. It's just another adventure.